Hello, this is the second section of formats of books of prime entry, and here we are discussing journal entries and format of journal. Here we can see a blank format of journal. Journal is the sixth and very important book of prime entry that is used to record all type of journal entries which could not be adjusted in other 5 books of prime entry. So here we can see its form of journal, and the same basic particulars are there as we have found in other formats, like there is date, then there is particulars or details column, then there is a folio column to give a reference of the ledger, then there will be 2 amount columns, debit and credit. So this is format of journal, and it is sometimes also known as journal. And how to put up entries in journal, that is slightly different from other books of prime entry, because here we will be recording the debit and credit, both of the aspects of the entry here. Here in journal entries we can find date will be mentioned, then name of the account to be debited, then the name of the account to be credited, and their relevant amounts will be written respectively in front of these debit and credits in debit and credit columns. What is this? This small part is called narration, and sometimes it is known as description, like what is happening in the transaction, that will be written here in a brief statement. That's why it is called narration, or it is called description of the entry. Like here it is written as description of the journal entry, and here it is written as narration. So debit account will be written first, then with a slight gap of a word or little gap there will be written another entry of the credit side, and this difference is just kept to make it clear that this is debit and this is credit. Then on the columns, the same way it is going in the same direction as it is going in the amount column, debit and credit. So we have found that this is format of journal. So now we will go back to this slide. Here what is the main thing to be written first? That will be the name of the business in the books of ICSA. So here we can see there will be written a business name first, then title of the account, title of the book of prime entry, that is journal, and here is again the format date, particulars, folio column, ledger folio, then debit and credit. So here we can see there is a first journal entry, like ICSA commenced business with cash. She has started up her business with investment of capital in the business in form of cash. She has invested 80,000, and 80,000 is raised in the capital. We should not be confused that she has taken startup of the business with 80 and 80. It's not 80 and 80, it's the same 80 amount, but it is recorded in a way like how much amount is coming actually in cash form and how much capital they have raised. So this way journal entry will be recorded. Cash asset will increase with 80,000, and how this 80,000 is generated, there is the reason. This 80,000 is generated by the capital investment of 80,000. So here is a brief narration of the entry. ICSA commenced business with cash. So 80,000 is mentioned on the both sides. In every transaction, because transaction is to be recorded from the both sides, from the debit aspect and from the credit aspect, so same amount is written on the debit side and same is on the credit. It's not so that this entry is of 80,000, this entry is of 40,000, but 40,000, how one account is being affected, like if one person gives, suppose A is giving 10,000 to B, and if we are recording it A as a receiver debit and B as a giver credit, same 10,000 will be written on the both sides, because the 10,000 amount is received by the receiver, 10,000 amount is given by the giver. So we are not supposed to be confused by these. It's written twice. It's written from the both aspects, like from the debit aspect and from the credit aspect. So we can see what is the reason, what is the description of the entry, that is deposited cash into the bank. Cash, the same 80,000 which was invested in the business, out of 80,000, 40,000 has been deposited into the bank. So bank account has increased with 40,000, that's why it is debit. Bank asset has increased, and here we had asset of cash 80,000, but out of 80, 40,000 has been submitted. So the cash account has decreased with 40,000. That's why cash is credit on this side. If we look at the next entry on the 3rd January, and the year is same 2018, so it's written once, month is mentioned once, and the dates which are changing, these are being changed. So on 3rd January, goods purchased by cash, purchases are to be recorded as expense debit. So purchases debit 5,000, and these purchases, this transaction is for cash. This is a cash transaction. So purchases debit, and what is going out from the business, that is cash. So purchases debit and cash credit, 5,000, 5,000. Then we can see the next transaction, that is credit purchase. Goods purchased on credit, 10,000, amounting 10,000. Purchases as expense debit, but the Lipton and Company account is credit. Why the account is mentioned here instead of writing cash? Because the first transaction, that was cash transaction, here it is credit transaction, and when there is credit transaction, we need to write the name of the creditor, the supplier, whoever is selling us for credit, and later we are responsible to pay them 10,000. So purchases debit 10,000 and Lipton and Company account credit with 10,000. Then there comes another entry, cash sales made. Just like purchases, it was cash transaction, the same it is cash transaction, but that was purchases, it is sales. Sales, when business is selling something to the customers, that becomes an income for the business. So that's why, as we had studied in accounting equation topic, once we were studying about the double entry, what is going to be debit, what's going to be credit, assets, liabilities, incomes, expenses. There we had studied all incomes are credit. So sales are income for the business, that's why sales are credit, and cash asset has increased with 11,000, that's why it is debit. So cash debit and sales credit. Then this is again the format and how entries are recorded in journals. Yes, here we can see prepare principal source documents and books of prime entry for the financial transaction correctly. So there comes the same part we were discussing, how entries are to be recorded in journals in all books of prime entry. So this, to continue the same topic, we would find here some transactions are given from 2016 May, 1st May, 3rd May, 4th May and 7th May. There are certain transactions taking place, and then there is clearly mentioned that which account is getting debit and which account is getting credit against these transactions. First transaction we find here, started a household machine business putting £25,000 into a bank account. A new business has been started by investing 25,000 into bank account. So bank has increased, bank debit, capital has increased, capital is credit, so it is written on the credit side. Next transaction we find bought equipment on time from house supplies 12,000. So their equipment has been purchased, so asset of equipment has increased, that's why it is debit, and it is purchased on credit from supplies, house supplies. So house supplies account is to be credit. So withdrew 150 cash from bank and placed it into the cash box. Cash of 150 is taken from the bank and is placed in the cash box. So cash account is debit with 150 and bank account is credit with same amount. Then there comes another entry, bought a van for 6800, as van is an asset. When business is purchasing something regarding inventory, they are purchasing something that is for the purpose of resale, that will be called inventory, and that will be recorded as purchases, and when those items of inventory are sold are recorded as sales. But when assets are purchased or sold, they are recorded with the name, with the particular name. Like here, van is the asset, it is purchased 6800 and paid by internet transfer from the bank account. So asset of van has increased, debit, and amount has been paid from bank. So bank account has decreased, that's why it is credit. So van debit and bank account credit. I hope so. These transactions are clear so far, how entries are recorded from the both aspects, debit and credit. Here is task to do, prepare journal entries of the following transactions. Sales on time to beefline 810, F-lane 1100, 𝐇𝐎 413. It is to be recorded in sales. Each of the transactions, there are two ways to record multiple transactions at a time. In one transaction, there are multiple entries taking place. So they could be recorded as collective entry, or they could be recorded as separate entries. As you are in the beginning stage, so it's better if you record all these entries separately. So once you are clear with this, then combined entries would be explained to you. Sales on time to beefline, F-lane, 𝐇𝐎. Sales are made. Sales is income, so sales credit 810, and as it is credit sales, so beefline as customer will be debit. Beefline to sales, same way other accounts will be recorded. Sales on time to F-start is the same credit sale entry, so you can record it like customer debit and sales credit. Return inwards from beefline and 𝐇𝐎. Return inwards is debit because it is return inward, we are getting in, so return inwards debit, and against debit there will be particular name of the customer. Beefline 124 credit, and there will be another entry, return inwards with 𝐇𝐎 62. F-lane paid us by check. F-lane paid us by check. So asset of bank has increased, bank debit, and F-lane has paid credit. 𝐇𝐎 paid us 351 by check. 𝐇𝐎 has paid us by check. So bank asset has increased with 351, and 𝐇𝐎 as payer is credit. Beefline paid us by cash. Now cash account has increased, cash debit, beefline credit. Sales on time to F-start. Again there is credit sale, so F-start is debit and sales credit with 240. And this task is to be completed on the proper format of journal as explained before. So you are supposed to prepare a proper format on Word or on Excel, and then put up all journal entries appropriately according to the told format. I hope so it's clear so far. Thank you.